How are we, mate?
Very good. How you doing, Martin? You alright?
Yeah, I'm all good. Let's get started with a quick rundown of the week's action. We are almost halfway through the season. Table is looking quite kind in my favour. We'll focus on Premier League for a minute. But I think it's only fair we start the biggest game of the weekend. And Liverpool versus Man United was surprisingly a boring old 0-0.
It was I found it quite an interesting game for a load of different reasons.
It's being slagged off today. Like all the news is, I think, just because it was 0-0, it didn't make it a boring game at all.
No, I don't think so. I think there was a lot going on in the game. I think Liverpool were genuinely anxious after City's result and the fact that City aren't going to be around for the Club World Championship, something we'll be talking about a bit more later, and the idea that they could be 12 points ahead of City. I think that played a part. They felt the expectation of their previous two wins, I think, a little bit, like they had to go and blow them away.
Everyone was saying it was going to be a daft scoreline.
This is it. And we were talking in the group, and I pointed out the fact that why is United getting hammered here, a foregone conclusion, when the day before Palace can draw away at City, and that doesn't seem a mad result. It just seemed like there's an expectation that Liverpool were going to batter them, and I think that played a part.
Form going in though, United are definitely were on the downward, and Liverpool have been nothing but up this season. Really, I think it was just this week 1-1 didn't equal 2, and Liverpool didn't absolutely smash them. So I was surprised at Liverpool's performance, but you're right. I think it was nervy. But for me, Liverpool looked very scruffy.
I also think the way the game was played really suited Man United's defence. So essentially, because United was so far back on the pitch, which people have criticised them for, but they've got a point away at Anfield. Because they were so far back, it meant that Evans and to a lesser extent Dalot couldn't be exposed in behind, which obviously Diaz was looking to do a lot. There was just no room for that.
Yeah.
It meant that Varane was essentially present for all of Mo Salah's cutting inside. He was met with essentially, I think, United's two best defenders in Varane and Shaw were essentially able to completely keep him out the game in terms of being able to do anything meaningful. Yes, he was taking pot shots from distance, but you'd rather him do that than slip inside it, and Varane just did not allow him to do that.
Liverpool still title contenders for you?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think it's becoming I'm going to say a 3.5 horse race. I'm not sure about Aston Villa yet. It'd be great if they maintain. I just can't see it, but I want it to happen. But then you've got the other three that I think are genuinely fighting for the title.
City aren't going anywhere, no matter how bad their form gets this side of the year. It's always the second half of the season they come good.
Yeah.
I mean, Villa beat Spurs, City and Arsenal like in 9 days or something like that. So if you do that, you've got to put yourself in the shout somewhere.
Oh, look, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. It's just a lot has to happen, I think, for Villa to do it. And also, some of their top players, I think, are potential targets in January. I know you talked about Douglas Luiz in midfield.
I'd love Arsenal to go and get Douglas Luiz. For two reasons. I think he's their most important midfielder. And I think someone like John McGinn gets a lot of the headlines, and then the exciting players up front, Diaby and obviously Watkins, I forgot the other, Bailey. But Douglas Luiz does a really good job, and finding good defensive midfielders is quite hard, as a lot of teams have proven. And also for the fact that it would weaken them significantly. I think it would make us better, make our squad stronger. But weakening Aston Villa is always a bonus, and I think that's what teams. I wouldn't surprise me if City went looking for Douglas Luiz or.
Well, that's the rumour as well, isn't it? They're looking to potentially bring him back. Obviously, he was there before, wasn't he?
Yeah. So, I think they'll be up there. It's at the moment with this coefficient stuff, it's looking like we're still only going to be at 4 places in the Champions League.
Yeah.
So that might push teams like Villa to go and strengthen as well. You never know at the moment. It's looking like there's a 4th spot up for grabs, and then you've got probably 5 teams really going for that. So it's going to be interesting. Is there anything else from the Liverpool game that you thought was noteworthy? I don't know if you want to talk about the red card. We spoke about it in our chat, but to let people in a little bit, I thought it was pretty ridiculous.
I think if you do the same thing twice, you're leaving yourself open. I've seen some pointing towards Darwin Núñez in the first half. I think that was borderline kicking the ball away, to be honest. I think
he got booked for that though, didn't
he? Was it not the elbow he got booked for? The actual challenge itself?
Right. And then there was kicking the ball away and dissent. So it was something in them 3 actions that he got booked for.
Look, I mean, I don't think it's the biggest injustice I've ever seen. I've heard a lot of people particularly unhappy with it, but like, it seemed needless to me. Yes, the ball went out of play. He said he's bit. Why carry on after you get the yellow? Like, I don't know.
It seemed pointless on both ends for me. It was so minuscule an action of dissent. They were, the referee's 30 yards away from him. It's not like he was screaming in his face. He's just flailing his arms in the air. And for Michael Oliver to go to the book twice, I think was an overreaction to an overreaction.
Potentially. And I found it quite funny today. I was confronted with this, and basically the idea that he wanted the referee to be more consistent. Some fellow I was talking to at work, but he booked him for exactly the same thing 5 seconds apart. Like, for me, that was pretty consistent. Like,
it's about as consistent as it gets, yeah.
So, just be careful what you wish for, really.
Yeah. Look, I get it. I just think it was needless. But, what I was worried about is that would become a talking point. And luckily, it stayed 0-0 and it didn't. But if Liverpool had gone and scored from that action of the sending off, I think a lot of fingers would have been pointed at that.
Yeah.
And obviously, luckily, we're not talking about it.
I think one more comment on that game that really stuck out to me sort of watching it is how poor Gakpo is. I really struggled to see what Liverpool and Man United, who were both in for him, have seen there. That I never like a player where I don't know where their position is. And with him, it's really open debate. Like, more so even than Havertz, I think. Like, with him, I really don't know his position. Like, I don't have a clue.
When Arsenal played PSV in the Europa League last season before he signed for Liverpool, and he was out as a 9, but sort of sat on the left all the time. So he was the front man in a 3 up top, but then hung about up left, and I think that was, made himself a lot of space.
Not even played for Liverpool then.
No. Yeah, the last space remaining that he hasn't played yet. I don't know what his strength is. It clearly, when he was at PSV, and knowing this through watching him a couple of times, he was the big fish there. So, them players are always going to stand out, and he's going to have a lot of time on the ball. Liverpool is fitting in as a squad player, and yeah, I don't know. There's a couple of players who I didn't get that much in that match. Amrabat was one. I'm a bit disappointed in him because he looks for me, he was nailed on a Man United player, which is, I don't want him to succeed at Man United by any stretch, but I liked what I saw from him when I'd seen him at Fiorentina, and obviously the bits for Morocco. I thought it was fantastic for them, but he looks so out of place in the Premier League at the moment. I don't know if you think the same. He looks slow.
We talked about him a bit yesterday, didn't we? We both echoed the same thing.
Yeah.
I've chewed on it a little bit because I knew we were going to end up talking about him today. And I think he probably does need some time. The pace between the Italian League and the Premier League, and he has gone straight in. There was not really a pre-season for him because United were penny pinching all the way up till the deadline. So we had no bedding period really to get used to the pace of what the football he was going to play. So he's having to learn on the job really. And a lot of the time he's been playing at left back, which obviously isn't ideal.
And going into a team that's not flying as well is always harder.
And it seemed the defensive nous is still there. Like, he's still winning the ball.
Yeah.
He's still tracking. Like, it's in possession. But I think maybe over time that snappiness will come and he'll be able to hit players quickly, because there is such a difference in playing in that sort of defensive midfield position in the Premier League than there is in Italy. Like, if you look how quickly Rodri
Massively,
will
yeah.
take the ball, for example, it
Yeah.
gives you an idea of the complete difference. So he may come good yet.
I want to say fingers crossed, but I'm really not asked if it
I don't
is.
want him to, yeah.
Yeah, I don't want it to, but
Yeah.
I do like him. And let's speak about another defensive midfielder for a sec, because I've got to sing the praises of Declan Rice. I'm astounded at how good this guy is, and I know there's West Ham fans banging on every time someone posts something about Declan Rice at Arsenal. West Ham Twitter goes mental because they were like, "Yeah, we've been telling you, we've been saying it for years." And I know a lot of people have. He's been great for England, but watching him week in, week out, I can't believe how much of a bargain £105 million is seeming. I just think he's unbelievable.
He's a fantastic footballer. Obviously, I've seen a lot of Declan Rice over the years. Just, watching Ireland, then England, and obviously with West Ham. But I remember the first time I really sort of saw the player, and it's a really weird reference this, but I remember it being really sticking with me. Do you remember those sort of YouTubers, the F2 freestylers?
Yeah.
Well, they had him on when he just broke through at West Ham. He was playing centre-back at West Ham. He must have been about, 18 then?
Yep.
And the technical ability he had, like, you expected this sort of clunky, sort of young centre-back that was sort of still developing, almost like puppy legs.
Yeah.
But no, you were looking at someone with such a high technical skill level at that age, and it was unbelievable to see. And I'm not saying that I was like, oh, right there, and then he's going to go right to the top there, but it's almost not surprised to see someone with that foundation of high technical ability then carry that through. We should try and find that video and post it.
I'll post it. I'll repost it in the link, even though one of them is an absolute right tit. But I know the video you're talking about, and we'll post it in the comments. Yeah,
I couldn't believe it. Like at the time, like how good he was. Like,
well, watching him week in, week out now I'm a big fan of Thomas Partey, but unless the Arteta can work out a way of getting the two of them together with Havertz in form, which is shocking everyone, but the Declan Rice is the first name on the team sheet right now. He's the second name on the team sheet for England after Kane, and he's proven such good value for 105 million. It's in the petition that West Ham Arsenal fans have put up. They wanted to send West Ham another 25 million. It started a Just Giving page. So, you know what? Brighton played a really weird game against us, which I didn't expect. They kept to a game plan as if they were playing Luton or a team where they think they could roll someone over at home. They played out from the back really tightly to the net, and there was a still, which I'd picked up on in the match, but they highlighted it on Match of the Day about the amount of space that Rice had. There was sort of our flat back four. This is from their goal kicks, and then they had their sort of back six trying to play it from the back. And Declan Rice, he had about 40 yards square around him free. He picked up everything that I'm just so impressed by him. And I think he's going to be, if we do win the league, he's going to be the main reason why. Well, that's where I go with it. Big statement. While Scott's not here, we don't have to talk about Chelsea winning, so that's fun.
Yeah, I'm not really. I don't. Who did they even play? Chelsea.
Sheffield United.
See, well, that doesn't even count anyway. But go on, next.
It barely counts.
Yeah.
And let's take it down.
Before we do, I did see that because I saw that Nicholas Jackson proves his doubters wrong by scoring against Sheffield United. So I did see that. And
don't forget, he's proved his doubters wrong when he scored a hat trick against 9 men to Tottenham as well.
Yeah, so I'm very proved wrong right now.
Nicholas Jackson is the king of punching down. He doesn't give a shit. Let's knock it down a few leagues. And what is going on at the Tough Sheet Stadium, Liam?
Hit a bit of a rut, which
is this typical this time of year? It's happened a few times in a row, hasn't
it? Yeah. I'm trying to not get too hung up about it, if I'm being completely honest. The Portsmouth game, that game can go either way. I think I said on air that I wasn't fully confident going into that game, even though we were flying. But the Bristol game, Bristol Rovers at home on Saturday, that was a disappointing result. Obviously, extenuating circumstances. We've gone 1-0 down out of nowhere, really. But then we've been caught out. Obviously, encamped quite high, playing a high possession in the opponent's half, and the ball through the middle has got through, and the centre-back, Ricardo Santos, has committed the foul and got himself sent off. And you always run that risk with possession game in the other team's half. I think it's a weakness of Tottenham's that they leave themselves open for that.
That's what I think. It's what Scott highlighted a couple of weeks ago about Postecoglou's tactics and his refusal to change. Bolton are playing a game to win the league, definitely to get promoted, but they're going to be right up there anyway. Just for frame of reference, where are Bristol in the league? Whereabouts roughly?
I'm gonna have to check, but I'm gonna guess middle to low table. They recently sacked the manager Joey Barton. Mid-table, and they've put a decent set of results together since obviously sacking the people's champ Joey Barton. Couple draws against teams around them, and then they've gone and beaten us at our place. So yeah, great win for them. Bolton stuttering, now winless in 3. Hopefully we can get back on the horse next week.
Yeah, and then you got obviously the busy period coming up, and then it'll be everything up to the FA Cup. So fingers crossed that everything turns up trumps. Let's move on to this week's topic that we were speaking a little bit in the group, and it was something that, so as we're recording this on Monday, it was announced earlier today about the 2025, so the end of next season, that Club World Cup. The Club World Cup currently is the champion of the Champions League, the Europa League, a couple of other things, the CONCACAF Cup, the Asia Cup, all sorts of stuff like that. It's the way it runs currently. So FIFA sneakily creating their own little Super League. This is a point that I'm going to get onto in a little bit, but let's just run through it because it's fresh information, and Liam, we need to learn a little bit about it.
Well, I think that's a good starting point before we even get into the actual structure and what's going on. Is the why this is happening, and this is part of the big political wars that's currently going on in a number of different ways with a number of different parties. FIFA that you mentioned, UEFA, essentially the big clubs themselves with the Super League. There's a load of different things about how to essentially create a new tournament that's going to be worth mega money, and just who has ownership of that and where that's going to be. And you're quite right. FIFA have kind of done it relatively sneakily, to be honest. There's not been a huge amount of consultation with this. They've almost sort of rolled it out of their own accord, really. It has been discussed in the past.
They wanted to do something like this every 4 years, like a World Cup, a Club World Cup, and make it more similar to the World Cup, just the club version. And they wanted to do it every 4 years, which, if it's that, I have less of a problem with it. The fact that they want to do this at the end of every season, so this is when they're planning to do it, at the end of every season, from, in the same way a World Cup would run. It's going to be, mid-June to mid-July, a 32-team tournament based on coefficient points from all around the world.
Yes, it almost comes like a finishing tournament for the whole season, like you're champion of the world then.
Yeah.
Almost, isn't it?
But this, I don't know. How are we going to roll out summer tournaments when there's a Club World Cup as well? This is going to be rolled out in the season that the USA World Cup is happening as well. How is it going to happen? How is it going to work?
So, at the moment, I don't really believe there is one beyond it in terms of this format. I believe this format has been created, and it's sort of go from there afterwards, really. So, the starting one for this one is 2025, and it'll take place in America a year before the North America World Cup.
I wonder if they do it every 2 years then, also. In between what would be the World Cup and the Euros, in between that year, there is a Club World Cup.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot there's a lot of appetite for this. I'd say in every continent except Europe, really.
Yeah.
An element of it in South America as well, but they're still pro it. But pretty much everyone except Europe kind of wants this to happen in terms of the conference. I talked about a few months back on the podcast the investment in African football by PIF and the Saudi thing.
Oh, yeah.
That very much now comes into the focus because all of a sudden now you're going to have African clubs competing at the very top table of football. And this is where they've managed to essentially bring themselves through the back door, really. And even now, like, despite it's been announced, no one's talking about that. The fact that they've got that that's their own Super League, the African Super League that is coming in with, I think, just 8 teams. I think it was the...
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it's staggering, really. And obviously a lot of the well, we'll come to that in a minute, but yeah, it's all about the money, essentially. But I don't see that in a cynical way. It's who controls these tournaments and is able to sell the TV packages and whatnot for this.
An actual champion of the world tournament is enticing and is definitely a sellable product everywhere. This will entice the American audience, definitely the South American audience, everyone. Like I say, apart from Europe, where all the best players and biggest teams are here anyway, and we already have a tournament that crowns a champion of that. The Club World Cup is always a little sidebar to that. So it's like an addition. It's almost like a Community Shield trophy because the European teams more often than not run out winners of that anyway.
In a world where there's infinite time and infinite availability of things, I don't hate the idea.
No.
But I can see why. I mean, FIFA Pro, obviously the union of professional footballers globally, are hugely against it in terms of...
Yeah, you can see why.
The players. But at the same time, and this is where it doesn't stand up, they're kind of doing this thing anyway. Like, a lot of these clubs are going to places like America or Asia to play in tournaments anyway, just for love. So it's essentially just, it's a slice of that pie, really. And I think that this is always the way things are going to go, really. And the Super League was just simply the European clubs trying to get there first, really.
Does this kill off?
Yeah.
Does this kill off the Super League ever coming back in that format?
No, I don't think so, because the Super League plans to run concurrently through the season, almost in the way the Champions League does, doesn't it?
I'm trying to get my head around how big someone's squad is going to have to be. We've already seen this season. There was a stat come out last week, actually, that injuries and what they're classing as an injury is something more than a knock that keeps you out for more than one game. And that is up 15% from last season already. And that's 50% from not at the same stage as last season. Is 50% plus the whole of last season already. So I am struggling to work out the logistics of it. If you look at how teams qualify for it, that's going to be another one that's going to kick up a stink, because already from the initial inaugural version of this tournament, there's going to be no Liverpool and Man United. Current qualifiers from Europe include Manchester City, Real Madrid, Chelsea, and this season's winners, leaving that open only to Arsenal as the next sort of potential English club, because we're the only other ones still in the Champions League.
And I don't know the answer to this, but what if City win it again? Or if Real Madrid win it again?
Well, does it
go back a year, or does it go to the most recent runner-up? I don't.
Well, I think this is where the coefficient points come in, and they're going to be as significant as your league table points, I think, at the moment, because
So does that mean that the highest coefficient place would go in then? That's not already qualified. Is that the...
And doesn't already have 2 teams in the tournament as well.
So you can only do 2 teams from one country?
I think so, yeah.
Right, so answers on a thing, but PSG maybe?
Potentially.
Well,
yeah. Bayern. I'm trying to think who's been decent in the Champions League or Europe altogether. I don't know. I suspect someone like Roma has really good coefficient points as well.
I think Arsenal probably have a good chance for the Champions League this year. I know that probably seems a mad thing to say out loud, but think they've got as good a chance as anybody, really. As I'd probably say it's between. If you asked me for a Champions League winner for this last place, it's a complete segue. This, by the way, but I'd probably say City, obviously. But the other two I'd probably go for are Arsenal and Bayern. I think would be my picks and who I think might win it.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to ever swat away Real Madrid just because they're Real Madrid and it's the Champions League. But I agree. I think something that suits us. We've looked very comfortable in the Champions League in comparison to our Premier League form, which is, I don't know, I'd say a little bit third gear. But even though we're top of the league, it is what it is. There's still evidently more to go. But yeah, we're in with a shout, and I'm very happy about that.
Okay, actually, I've got answers. I've got answers to questions that I was asking myself. So
we are learning.
What's that?
We are learning.
Yes, we are learning. So if a club wins 2 or more seasons of their Confederation's top club competition, i.e. Champions League, additional teams will be termed by a club ranking of a 4-year period. You're right, coefficient. A restriction of 2 clubs per association will be applied, with an exception for Champions clubs if more than 2 clubs on the same association win their Confederation's top club competition.
Right, so that's the way it stands. The fact that 2 of the last 3 winners of the Champions League are English, in Chelsea and Man City. If Arsenal were to win it this season, then yes, we would have 3 teams in it from Europe.
Okay, fair enough. And then, but if it's not Arsenal, let's say it's Man City or one of the others that have already won it, it's going to be the non-English next highest coefficient over 4 years.
Ah, right, okay.
Because it can't, obviously, so whoever's, that's exactly what it will be. So, that's what that is for clubs that are pushing this year.
Let's discuss why this is happening. Why? I don't. The only question I have is to repeat that whole sentence. Why is this happening? What? In my head, it is a organised reaction to the Super League attempt a couple of years ago, and FIFA putting a nice official stamp on something that may be just as corrupt. And you can't mention the word FIFA without mentioning the word corrupt in some form of sentence.
I'm trying to.
I understand what are you thinking, because in theory, the idea of a world champion at club football sounds great. How we fit this into a calendar, thankfully that's someone else's job. Whether the need for this is significant and, what's wrong with leaving stuff the way it is.
Well, to be
we're just spitballing ideas here, so this doesn't have to be profound.
No, it does. I mean, we already have a Club World Cup, don't we? We already have that. But essentially, it is widening it. It's casting the net a little bit further, maybe making it a bit more marketable and palatable, maybe in Europe, where at the moment, Europe doesn't really care too much for this competition. South America do. And essentially what you were getting is you were getting a final of one South American team where one English team, and you don't get those big, almost rivalry games within the competition that maybe make it. So marketable games. So for example, let's say in the quarterfinal of this, you've got a Chelsea versus Man City playing in New York in a quarterfinal. All of a sudden, that's a very different game. Or you get, I don't know, Palmeiras versus Fluminense too. They're both, is it Flamengo? Is the Rio team? And you get these 2 Brazilian teams meeting in a semi-final against each other. And it's a very, very different game. So, I completely get that. It brings other areas to the top table as well that are strong sides. So, some of the Saudi clubs, I imagine by the time this comes around, will be very competitive.
This bit I do like. I do like the fact that the team from the MLS or, South America are going to be able to showcase themselves competitively against, Europe's elite, which is what we're going to need. One big question, and, in turn that will strengthen them leagues because players are going to want to play in this tournament, I think.
This will be good as well for the African League, the African football. It's been fantastic for African football.
I've got 2. Go on. I've got 2 points, but do you think this calls into question? And you only have to give a brief answer if you want. But do you think this calls into question the multi-club ownership rule that was recently discussed?
Definitely does. Without question, because you could easily have 2 or 3 from City Football Group A.
Yeah.
You could easily have one from 777, the ones that have owned Everton, a multi-country Red Bull group. Yeah, of course it does. That will be a problem here.
So, and how will someone like Aston Villa, who are having a great season, and maybe they go on and get into the Champions League this season, but they haven't developed any coefficient points for years, how will they qualify for something like this?
The truth is they don't, really.
Without going and winning the Champions League or whatever.
It's very, very difficult without either, from a European perspective, without unbelievable levels of investment or going and winning a thing. It's very, very difficult. I mean, I'm having a look at some of the clubs in terms of the coefficient now. And the top 3 are Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain, and Inter. Like, that's the teams you're competing with in terms of pedigree. Like, it's just not happening. And
consistent finalists and semi-finalists in the Champions League over the last couple of years.
Will over a long time we see players maybe leaving clubs to go because they want to play in this? Potentially, but maybe not. I think the first one may be a bit more of a novelty.
I think it will sway those players who are deciding towards the end of the career which MLS team they want to go to or which Saudi team they would prefer, which colour Saudi kit.
Praising the Saudi league today. I wonder if that's any coincidence, but yeah, no, it probably will sort of see a further migration of talent towards these big, massive super squads.
Yeah,
at the top table, but
and at the end of it, they're going to have the most money.
Yeah, look, I mean, football, it is global. I do understand making the game more accessible globally. Like, not everything should be about Europe, and I agree with that. But I also I dislike that the first one's in America. I dislike that. I think we're always very keen to sort of pander to America with stuff like this, and
a little bit.
It wouldn't be where I put the first one.
Unless they're tying it in the same way they would a Confederations Cup, which they used to do.
That's exactly the justification for having it in America.
So that I can see why. But yeah, the first one maybe needs to be, I don't know, maybe America pull it off and it becomes the grandest stage. I think there's so much potential in the MLS if they would only just bring in some form of division and actual competitiveness, but obviously that's not their style and that's a whole different podcast. But
there's at least one MLS team already qualified.
Seattle, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's one. The first American winners of that.
Which Premier League club are they tied to? I wonder. Not us. It's not us. We're Toronto, I think.
The Seattle.
Anyway.
That's a derby, isn't it? Toronto and Seattle. Like, I know they're cross countries, but quite close.
Yeah, geographically it's probably not too far, and maybe our Canadian geography knowledge is way off here. So
no, I think Toronto's that side. It's where Luke would have been useful if he didn't have commitments. Not doing good.
God, these kids, they really get in the way, don't they? Yeah. So Club World Cup, good thing, bad thing? Question mark. Give it a chance. Where'd you sit with it?
I think it's a good thing in general.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I'll definitely be watching it.
Oh yeah, 1,000%. I want to see who's the first champion of the world.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with good thing.
Right, so I guess we'll just got to wait and see with that. I have mixed feelings about it because I don't know. Maybe it's just because of like Infantino hanging around it and it's FIFA, but
I feel we're predispositioned to not like FIFA and FIFA's ideas. I think that's
justified.
Yeah, exactly. My first gut instinct was like, "Oh no, what now?" But I look at it and I think we're doing a Club World Cup anyway in the middle of the season. Like, kind of why not do this? They don't want to be touring the world anyway. These teams, so why not?
They've also created, I don't know if they've created or rebranded this as well, but the Intercontinental Cup. So that's going to run along as well. And that is going to be, the Intercontinental Cup is going to be sort of what the current Club World Cup is like. So the Club World Cup is going to change the whole formats to be like a World Cup format, obviously spread across the world. The Intercontinental Cup is going to be Champion of Champions Cup. Not a European Super Cup, like a World Super Cup. So, and again, I don't know.
Then, right, I'm against this. Then, like,
I'm against this. This is a totally pointless one.
What's the point of having that? Like, that's what that exists.
Yeah,
that's what this is now, isn't it? That's what city you're going to now in Saudi Arabia.
Well, that's sort of why it stinks a little bit, is because the rebranding and redirection of something that all the teams are already bought into and are familiar with, and then chucking something else in that is that exact same thing.
Tell me a little bit more about this Intercontinental Cup then. Where's that being held? I've not even seen this, by the way. So where's that being held?
You're gonna like this, right? So the Intercontinental Cup is going to be something that runs throughout the year, based on this season. Right, let's just get our dates in line for everyone. The Club World Cup is going to now happen at the end of the season in a World Cup style format. The Intercontinental Cup is going to be similar to what the current version of the Club World Cup is, and that's going to be held sort of through the year based on this year's winners of tournaments, this season's. So in December 2024, there will be an Intercontinental Cup playoffs, and it will be to decide who plays the winner of this year's Champions League. That will be played. So I'm pretty sure that is competed by the winners of the Asian Champions League? I'm pretty sure what that's called, and the South American Copa Libertadores. I believe that.
Yes.
So that is the competition between them, being hosted by our friends Saudi Arabia.
Of course, there they are.
Wink, wink.
They're getting on the act.
So this is their little buy-in, it seems. And so that is going to be pretty much like a World Super Cup. And then you've got the Club World Cup that runs as a standalone tournament, Champion of Champions style at the end of the year.
Right, okay. I'm just having a look. I've found this, right. Okay. Now this makes sense. So is this going to be is this going to be every year in Saudi, or is it just that one's in Saudi for now?
So they've only announced the first iteration of both of these things, so I guess we wait and see.
But where's the current one being held?
The first one will be in Saudi Arabia. The current one isn't a thing.
But the Club World Cup this year, where's that?
That is in Saudi Arabia, isn't it? Okay. Haven't they flown out there?
Yeah. Anyway, well done. Congratulations to Saudi on winning those bids. It's always
hardly fought bids, I reckon they were. Let's see what sort of watch Infantino's wearing at the Club World Cup in a couple of weeks. Oh, it's actually this week. City kick off this week.
They've flown out, I think, haven't they?
Interesting. Well, that's some more football for us to watch, Liam. We have a couple of weeks off. It is Christmas time. So, do you have a favourite Christmas song, just off the top of your head?
Do They Know It's Christmas by Country Mile. And I understand that it's problematic in a lot of ways with its lyrics now, but it's just so catchy, isn't it? It's such a good song. But yes, Do They Know It's Christmas? Good choice.
Mine is a bit more of a modern one. I like Underneath the Tree by Kelly Clarkson.
I do know that one. Yeah.
It's what I would call a modern classic. But
modern classic. There we go.
We've been having a debate in the group, and I'd love people to comment their favourite Christmas song, just so I can win this argument and people can understand. Obviously, All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey is the greatest song of all time. We're not going to include that in the vote, so please let us know what the best Christmas song is. Hopefully by this time next week, you'll be all tuning into our Christmas quiz, or have tuned into our Christmas quiz, because it will be Christmas Day by this time next week. And Liam, are you ready for that?
Well, yeah, I am ready. I will be doing it there and then. There's absolutely no chance that it's already happened, but yeah, I'll be ready.
Honestly, you got to kill the illusion that I'm trying to create of our professionalism.
Well, I think it is quite professional. We've done it. Not done it earlier. That way we don't miss it when we're obviously in the middle of festivities.
Pissed. That's my plan for the next couple of weeks.
Unfortunately, though, Luke did have commitments in the future, so won't be there.
He has commitments now. Listen, having a family is a big commitment. And now he's got a young little one who he gets to celebrate Christmas with. So let's sign off for Christmas. And I will see you at some point in 2024. Be very early on, because I think New Year's Day and all them fixtures are on Monday. So I don't know when we're going to record the next actual recording for us. But
Is the second a bank holiday this year?
Don't know.
Okay, never mind.
Good question. I hope so. I'll take as many days off as I can. But Liam, thanks very much, mate. It's been a lovely year getting this started.
Yeah, well, thank you. It's been good. I've enjoyed it. We'll see what 2024 has to bring, and maybe this time next year with the official Sadie Pro League podcast. Fingers crossed.
That's what Christmas wishes are for. Before you go, have you got any New Year's resolutions?
Ooh.
Or do you not believe in them?
No. Last year I did the 5 a.m. club, and it's changed my life, to be completely honest, in terms of my productivity.
Well, that's good.
In terms of next year, no, not yet, but I'll let you know.
Yeah, I have got one, but it's not defined as such yet. It's more to do with my physical health rather than any form of goal setting. But I need to define it in like 1 or 2 sentences, because it just gets drawn out and forgotten about too quickly. But I do like the idea of a new year, new me goal setting session. And we've also got one for the podcast as well. There's going to be lots coming next year. Obviously, there'll be no breaks for us. We're cracking on. There'll be some video stuff coming out. There's obviously a summer tournament. There's the rest of the season to go, so we will be there and we'll be around.
Of Man United stuff to talk about, I'm sure.
There's always Man United and VAR to talk about. So if you hear us talking about that in the near future, just know it's been a quiet week and we've reverted to Man United or VAR.
Which, to be fair, is all we talk about anyway, really.
Well, you like to crowbar into more sentences. Listen, Liam, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Wishing you all the best, everyone. Thank you very much for tuning in. You know where to go. It's www.fixingfootballpodcast.com to find out all our links on social media. Please subscribe on YouTube for my Christmas present. Liam, you got a Christmas present that you'd like to ask for?
Find us on Twitter @FixingFootball.
And just follow us on that, and that'll make Liam smile for, a few seconds.
Also, it's X now, so I keep forgetting X.
Call it what you want. It's that Twittery thing. Right, I'm signing off. Catch you all next year. Love you all. Thank you very much. See you, Liam.